Buck's Girl is a really heartfelt, moving episode, and in true Doris Day Show style, it also still manages to be funny. This is the 12th episode of the first season of the Doris Day Show, directed by Gary Nelson, and this aired originally in December 1968. And Doc is a friend of Buck's, and Doc informs Buck that the barber shop now has a manicurist, a female manicurist. And Buck decides to go along and get a haircut and check her out. And there is some kind of slightly outdated opinions towards ogling and viewing this woman. But once they get past that fact, it's actually quite sweet because both Doc and Buck treat her very respectably. And there's no kind of objectification, really. And when they do maybe think of her, or rather they don't think of her, which I'll explain in a moment, they acknowledge that and they're aware that these things are kind of not the best way to treat her. So I think after the initial kind of let's go and check out the female manicurist, it became a lot more easy to digest. But unfortunately, their friendship is tested when they both start to spend a lot of time with her and they both end up falling in love with her. Now, there are questions here. Is it possible to fall in love with somebody that suddenly who you've just met? What's the likelihood of them both doing that? You have to take it with a pinch of salt. But what I did like is that at no point did anybody blame the manicurist. She's called Verna McIntosh, played by Kay Stewart. Doc is played by Walter Sande, or Sande. And at no point, because I did worry they were going to go down the route of this woman is spending time with both men, she is playing them. It never actually took that route. And there's this lovely conversation between Doris and Verna where they discuss this problem, and Verna realizes that she's in this kind of fortunate situation where, as she says, a woman of her age has two very fine men competing for her affection, and it's obviously in some ways a fortunate position to be in, but at the same time the decision has to be hers. And both men actually acknowledge that. They are aware after a little while, it takes them a bit of time to get there, but eventually they acknowledge the fact that while they're both feuding over who gets to marry this woman, they acknowledge that actually nobody had really stopped to take the time to ask Verna what she wanted. And I think there are a lot of lessons to be learned there, but it's also a lovely story about friendship and about not letting a woman come between you, but also seeing the bigger picture. And I think it's beautifully done, and as I said, surprising. I did worry they were going to treat Verna a certain way. I did worry it was going to be heavily objectifying her, but actually that didn't happen to any extent that I was thinking it would. And it's really beautiful. The only downside to this episode is that the boys are not really in it. Billy and Toby, played by Philip Brown and Todd Starke, they do appear in it very briefly, and the scene with the horse I actually found to be very comical and very entertaining, and I really enjoyed it. We also have Juanita, played by Naomi Stevens. I've not looked ahead with these episodes, so I'm still not sure what has happened with one of my favourite characters who seems to have disappeared from the previous episodes, Aggie, played by Fran Ryan. I don't know if that's it for her, or if she's back in it at any point. I don't want to look ahead. I don't really want to know. I don't want the spoilers, but I'm keen to see what happens there and what happens with the character of Juanita. But this particular episode, Buck's Girl, is really moving and a real story about friendship and love. And apart from the two boys not being in it as much as I would have liked, it's as perfect as the rest of the episodes. Doris Day obviously was on top form, and I really, needless to say, really thoroughly enjoyed it.